What would you do if the family you love turned their backs on you, raising their hands one by one to vote you out of their lives? I sat there, my son Luca clutching my sleeve, his innocent question. Mom, why are they doing this? Cutting deeper than their betrayal. That night, I walked away with my dignity, but I made a promise. They'd never silence us again. I sat at the dining table, frozen, as every hand went up one after another. My sister-in-law, Belle, stood there like a judge, her smile sharp and practiced, as if this was just a playful game. She'd asked the question so casually. Should Ira be uninvited from family events? My mother-in-law, Carol, raised her hand. Then my father-in-law, Robert. Cousins, their spouses, every hand except one. Grandpa Joe's. My son, Luca, clung to me, his small body pressed against mine. He looked around, confused, his voice cutting through the silence. Mom, why are they doing this? I couldn't answer. My throat burned, but I forced a smile, stood and said, Thank you for the meal. We walked out, my head high, Luca's hand in mine. I didn't argue or fight back. But the next week, every person who raised their hand received a letter from a law firm. Inside was something that silenced them completely. Sundays used to mean something else. Before my husband, Micah, died, they were alive with laughter and chaos. Kids ran barefoot through the yard. The smell of garlic bread filled the house, and Grandpa Joe played old country tunes on his portable speaker while Belle begged him to turn it down. After Micah's accident, Sundays became the loudest silence I'd ever known. At first, everyone was kind. Belle brought store-bought casseroles and hugged me, her lavender perfume lingering. Carol and Robert insisted I stay close to family, dropping off dinners at my doorstep. But as months turned to years, their warmth faded. Texts grew short. Calls stopped. Invitations vanished. I hadn't argued or caused a scene, I'd never demanded anything. I just stopped being useful. That's when I realized I wasn't family to them. I was Micah's wife. Without him, I was a reminder of their loss or maybe something they didn't want to face. Luca, though, never stopped asking questions. He was 7 when his dad died, and now at 10, he carried Micah's smile, his dimples, and that quiet way of watching people. Mom, he asked once, why doesn't Grandma call anymore? I told him, maybe they're just busy. Maybe they don't know how to talk about Daddy. He nodded, but I saw the sadness settle in his chest. He missed them in a way I couldn't fix, and for him I decided to try again. So when Belle texted out of the blue one Thursday family dinner Sunday, would be nice to see you and Luca, I froze. I reread it 5 times. It felt like a trap, but Luca's face lit up when I told him, and that was enough. We arrived 10 minutes early. Their house was spotless like a magazine spread, not a toy out of place. Belle greeted us with a smile and a hug, her cheek brushing mine, smelling of lavender and control. Luca ran inside to play. I followed slower, taking it all in. Carol barely glanced at me in the kitchen, slicing lemons for her iced tea, pausing her conversation the moment I walked in. Robert gave a nod from the den, eyes glued to the football game. No one said they were glad to see us. I offered to help with dinner and was handed the salad bowl, then quickly left out of their chatter. Belle and Carol laughed at inside jokes I wasn't part of. I smiled anyway, I'd gotten good at that over the years, smiling in places I didn't belong. At dinner, Luca was seated at the kids' table, and Belle served him first, then the others. When it was my turn, I had to reach around dishes to grab a plate, small things, but they added up. Conversation buzzed around me. Work promotions, school updates, vacation plans. No one asked how Luca was doing or how I was holding up. It was like we were guests at a party we hadn't been invited to. The only warmth came from Grandpa Joe. He moved slowly now, leaning on a cane, but his presence was steady as ever. He sat beside me and passed the bread. I'm glad you came, he said softly. Luca needs to know he still belongs. And so do you, even if they don't see it yet. I swallowed hard, his words anchoring me. I glanced at Luca, laughing with his cousin Levi, his plate piled high, eyes full of hope. He didn't see what I saw, the way the air shifted when I entered a room. He was still a kid, believing the best in people, and I wanted to protect that. I convinced myself I could get through one dinner. Just smile, stay quiet, and survive the evening. But what happened next shattered that fragile peace. After dessert, with plates scattered with crumbs and glasses half empty, the kids ran to the basement. I thought maybe I'd made it through. Then Belle stood up. She tapped her glass with a spoon, and everyone turned to her like it was scripted. I expected a toast or family news. Instead, she said, "I think we need to talk about the tension in this family." Her voice was smooth, like she was doing us all a favor. She sighed dramatically, glancing at her husband for support. "I know I'm not the only one who's felt it, this awkwardness. We need to be honest about where it's coming from." I didn't get it at first. No one looked at me, but I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not trying to stir drama," she went on, "but it's fair to say things haven't felt the same since Ira rejoined us." My name landed like a stone. She turned to me, her smile tight. "I'm not saying you haven't been through a lot. We all grieved Micah. We loved him. But we've had to move forward, and some of us feel like we're walking on eggshells around you." I thought I'd misheard her. The room felt distant, like I was floating outside myself. Then she said it. "So I thought we could just vote. No hard feelings, just a show of hands. Should Ira be uninvited from future family events for the sake of peace?" Silence. Then Carol's hand went up. Robert's followed. Levi's mom, his dad, cousins, spouses, even people I hadn't spoken to all night. Every hand except Grandpa Joe's. I couldn't breathe. My face burned, my ears rang. Then I felt a tug on my sleeve. Luca. He'd come back upstairs, probably for more cake. Instead, he'd walked into this. "Mom," he whispered. "Why are they doing this?" That broke me, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I did, and I couldn't say it in front of him. I forced a smile, lips trembling, and took his hand. "Thank you for dinner," I said to the table, my voice steady despite everything. "We should be going." No one stopped us. No one spoke. As we walked out, Grandpa Joe stood, touching my shoulder gently. "You don't deserve this," he whispered. I nodded and kept moving. I held Luca's hand tightly to the car. He didn't ask anything else, just rested his head on my arm as I buckled him in. I drove home in silence, not the kind that soothes, but the kind that sinks into your bones. That night, I sat in the dark, listening to Luca breathe as he slept beside me. Belle had planned that moment, rehearsed it, built it over months, maybe years. She didn't want peace. She wanted me erased. And that vote was her performance, her show of power. I let her have it that night. But I wasn't going to stay quiet forever. The house was quiet that night, save for the hum of the fridge and Luca's soft breathing. He'd fallen asleep curled against me, his hand clutching my sleeve like he was afraid I'd slip away. I lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying it all: Belle's voice, the raised hands, Luca's question. Why are they doing this? For years, I'd bitten my tongue for the sake of peace. I'd let them push me aside, convinced myself silence was noble, that staying quiet was better than being the problem. But that vote wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. It was meant to humiliate me in front of everyone, to show Luca his mom didn't belong. I couldn't let that stand. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and made tea I didn't drink. Instead, I opened my laptop and dug into a folder I hadn't touched in years: old texts, voice memos, photos. I scrolled through messages from Belle, one subtle but now glaringly intentional. One stood out. "You don't have to come to Luca's recital. It might be awkward for everyone." Another from Carol. "It's probably better if you just drop him off at the party. It'll be easier for the other kids." I hadn't seen it before, how they'd been erasing me, one polite nudge at a time. I opened my notes app and started typing. I listed everything: their exclusion from family decisions, whispered jabs at my parenting, the vote. I recalled Belle's old lines. "We all feel a little uncomfortable around you, or you can be so sensitive." It hit me, this wasn't just personal. It was a pattern, one I could legally challenge. By morning, I'd found a law firm online specializing in family harassment and reputational harm. I requested a consultation, and within 24 hours, I was on a call with Danica Rhodes, a sharp, calm attorney who didn't flinch when I told her what happened. "I don't think they expect you to push back," she said. "They don't," I replied. "But I'm doing this for my son." Danica reviewed the messages and listened to audio I hadn't even realized we had. Luca's smartwatch, which I'd forgotten could record. It had captured nearly everything from that night. Belle's voice proposing the vote, the awkward silence, my name spoken like a verdict, and her damning words. "She's too weak to fight back anyway." Danica leaned back. "We'll draft a cease and desist letter. But we're attaching documentation to show this isn't just hurt feelings. It's calculated harm, exclusion of a child, and emotional manipulation of a minor. I exhaled, feeling power return to me for the first time in years. We discussed next steps: how to restrict Luca's access to family members who created an unsafe emotional environment. It wasn't about custody, it was a warning. Danica's team sent the letters 2 days later, one to every adult who'd raised their hand. Sealed, signed, and delivered with precision. By Thursday morning, the calls started. Carol left a voicemail. Robert texted, "We need to talk. This has gone too far." Belle messaged, "Seriously, a lawyer? What is wrong with you?" Then minutes later, "You're really going to tear this family apart over a stupid dinner?" I didn't respond. It wasn't just a dinner, and she knew it. The letters laid it all bare: specific texts, timestamps, quotes from the smartwatch, including Belle's 2-week jab in bold. They outlined a pattern of targeted exclusion and deliberate humiliation in front of a child, with a warning. Any further attempts to isolate me or harm Luca emotionally would lead to a formal complaint with Child Protective Services and a motion to limit their access to him. The closing hit hardest. This firm represents a mother who chose silence for family harmony. That silence is no longer a gift she's willing to give. Within a day, they all went quiet. No one defended the vote. No one questioned the audio. They knew what they'd done. By Friday, a handwritten letter arrived in my mailbox, no return address. Just a folded card. It was from Carol. "I'm sorry for what happened. We didn't think you'd take it this far. Maybe we were wrong about you." I read it once and tucked it away beside my wedding ring. It wasn't an apology. It was regret they'd been caught. Grandpa Joe called that afternoon, his voice warm with a chuckle. "Your lawyer gave him all heart attacks," he said. "Belle's been quiet as a mouse." "She deserves worse," I replied. "She does," he agreed. "But I'm proud of you anyway." That weekend, Luca asked if we were going back to their house. I looked at my brave, sensitive boy, who'd seen more cruelty in one night than most adults face in years. "No, sweetheart," I said. "Not for a while." He nodded, then smiled. "That's okay. Can we go to the beach instead?" "Yes," I said. "The beach sounds perfect." 3 months have passed since the letters went out. No one's tried to organize another vote. No one's invited us back. And no one's apologized, not truly, not face to face. The silence hasn't just lingered. It's grown louder. But for the first time in years, I feel free. I don't wake up bracing for cold texts or wondering what I did wrong. I don't rehearse how to handle another backhanded comment disguised as honesty. I don't shrink when I walk into a room anymore. Most importantly, Luca's okay, better than okay. He doesn't ask about his cousins anymore. He's stopped checking the mailbox for birthday cards that never come. We've built new traditions, ones not rooted in keeping peace with people who tried to erase us, but in creating joy with those who care. Every Sunday morning, we grab donuts and walk the lake trail behind our apartment. Luca brings his sketchbook, I bring coffee. We sit on the bench where Micah used to take him as a toddler, talking about school, cartoons, or space, whatever's on his mind. There's no tension, no pretending, just peace. I've started therapy too. I used to think it was for people who couldn't hold it together. Now I know it's for those holding it together but tired of bleeding in silence. My therapist helped me name what happened that night, not just exclusion, but emotional abuse, manipulation, and bullying dressed up with smiles and dinner plates. She showed me the vote wasn't a sudden betrayal but the final act of a long pattern. That clarity healed something I didn't know was broken. I don't feel angry anymore. I don't wake up wanting to make them feel what they made me feel. Healing makes revenge irrelevant. I didn't want to ruin their lives. I wanted Luca to have a mom who could show him what strength really looks like. Strength isn't yelling at a table of people who've already judged you. It's knowing you can walk away and still command respect when the door closes behind you. Some might say I overreacted, that it was just a vote. But if you've ever sat quietly in a room where you're made to feel invisible, you know how loud that silence is. I didn't pursue legal action for drama. I did it to draw a line words couldn't. I'd given them years of kindness, understanding, chances to treat me like the mother of their grandson. They answered with cruelty cloaked as civility. They bet on my silence, mistaking it for weakness. They were wrong. I've learned family isn't sacred just because it's family. Blood doesn't excuse mistreatment. Loyalty doesn't mean enduring pain. Family is chosen, built, earned. Grandpa Joe still visits every Saturday, playing chess with Luca badly and sharing sugar cookies from the corner bakery. He never mentions the others and I don't ask. Last week Luca asked, "Do you think they miss us?" I paused. "Maybe," I said. "But missing someone doesn't mean you treated them right." He nodded and went back to coloring, wiser than most adults I know. My story isn't about being shut out, it's about walking away and realizing I didn't lose a family. I escaped one. Now we're building something better, not louder or bigger, but kinder, safer, ours. If you've ever been the quiet one, underestimate it, choosing peace over revenge, I hope this story gives you strength. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's the loudest power there is. I apologize for the confusion. It seems I thought we'd reached the end of the story based on the previous section, but I realize you'd like me to continue with the final part of the transcript, which includes the call to action portion for the audience. I'll pick up right where the narrative left off and include that closing segment, keeping the tone consistent and polished for an American audience. Here's the continuation. My story isn't about being shut out, it's about walking away and realizing I didn't lose a family. I escaped one. Now Luca and I are building something better. It's not louder or bigger, but it's kinder, safer, and completely ours. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been the quiet one in the room, underestimated, or forced to choose peace over revenge, I hope it gives you a spark of strength. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the loudest kind of power there is. If you connected with this journey, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect your peace? Drop your story in the comments below, I'd love to hear it. And if you want more true stories like this, stories about strength, healing, and finding your voice, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that matter. Thank you for being here. We don't need a room full of people to belong, just one space where we're truly heard.